Hey there, and welcome back to Local Marketing Secrets. I'm your host, Danny Leibrandt, and today I'm with Jim Klauck. If you don't already know Jim, he's been in radio for over 40 years now and has spent the past 20 years helping major home service businesses grow through radio and podcasting. He's the founder of Check-A-Pro, a trusted referral network that's connected thousands of homeowners with vetted pros since 2005. He's the host of the long-running Check-A-Pro radio show and the nationally syndicated Bring On Success podcast. Jim has worked with brands like A1 Garage Door and Abacus Plumbing, authored the Radio Pitchman's podcast Playbook, and has spoken on stages like Vertical Track. So if you're in the home services space or just want to learn how media can drive real growth, you're in for a masterclass. So without further ado, thanks for coming on the show, Jim.
Danny, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here. Great job on that intro. You know more about me than I do.
I try. Something I've been doing with guests recently is doing ChatGPT deep research. Yep. So that's kind of how I can kind of jump that hurdle there.
And it's amazing how accurate ChatGPT is and how much they know about us. A little creepy, but it is great for research.
Yeah, definitely. And, of course, I've watched some podcasts of you and all that stuff. I'm a fan. You've been in radio for over 40 years. I'm kind of just getting my start into it. I just started my second podcast, and I absolutely love it. So really look up to you, really respect you, and love what you're doing. So without further ado, again, let's get into the show. I want to jump straight into the value. So the first thing is that I'd like to ask you is, how do you think about radio? You've been in it for 40 years now. How do you think about it?
Well, I think most people approach radio wrong. So a lot of people think radio, especially if they're younger people, think radio has died with their grandfather. It's still strong. I will tell you this. Over the past 2 decades, because of digital primarily, radio has declined. And it's kind of hit a safe low point. It's like when you have a brand new truck. When you drive it off the lot, it loses $5,000. Let's say it's a $40,000 truck. Loses a few $1,000. And then 2-3 years later, it drops to $20,000. But it doesn't seem to go down much after that. That's what radio has done. It's lost some of that equity, but it's still very stable. Over 80% of Americans listen to radio weekly somewhere. And think about it. They're in their truck, their car, in an elevator, a doctor's office. Somewhere it's being piped in, even if they haven't asked for it to be on. A lot of business owners, and I specialize in contractors, home service professionals. A lot of them make the mistake, I believe, of just buying 30 or 60-second radio commercials. That's what a lot of people think radio is only. Just like TV, I'll just buy a 30-second television commercial. What I suggest is you buy long form, and people ask me, what is long form? Long form is 30 minutes to 1 hour long in an infomercial style. And if you're going to contact a radio station, what you're going to ask them for is, do you have an hour or half hour of block programming time? It is so much less expensive, Danny, to buy a 1 hour show than it is a 30-second commercial per minute. So you can spend $50 for a 30-second commercial on a radio station, but the whole hour could only cost $500. And you can tell a story in an hour, and it's a totally different process. So I don't help home service contractors buy 30 and 60-second radio commercials. They can do that themselves, or they can hire an agency to do that. I invite them onto my radio program. We craft a direct response message. And there's a formula for that, and I can get into it if you'd like, but there is a formula for that to make the phone ring. So when the phone rings for the HVAC guy or the plumber or the electrician, those aren't leads. Those are appointments, because that listener knows the owner because they're on the radio with me. They know the product or service. They know the offer. There's usually a special deal, and there's only 10 of these available on the show today, so you must call now, just like any other infomercial. And they do. And on top of that, the contractor gets branding for free because the direct response pays for the radio time, but at the same time, we're saying A1 Garage Door Service, Abacus Plumbing, Air Conditioning, and Electrical, Garage Door Doctor, whatever the name of the company is, it's being repeated throughout that hour.
Awesome. So you mentioned the formula. Let's dive into that. What does that look like?
It's very simple, and I suggest people re-listen to this and write it down if they want to do it themselves. You need to be interviewed by an expert. So don't make the mistake of doing your own show. It's always best to be a guest. If you watch any infomercial for, let's say, a blender or exercise equipment, you're going to see the host of Home Shopping Network or something like that. And they're going to have the inventor or the owner of the company on to explain the blender. So you need the pitchman, which is what I am, to interview the expert, like an HVAC operator. So picture this. I'm interviewing the HVAC guy. I kind of play dumb, don't know a lot about it. I am that avatar customer they're looking for. I'm 58 years old. I'm the customer that most home service companies want to reach. So when people are listening to me, they identify with me. Versus if I were 25, they wouldn't be able to identify with me as much because the target audience is 50 plus. So that's the number one thing. Be the expert on someone else's show. Number two, offer a product with a discount. So it needs to be a product. It's very hard to do a service. Now, we do have HVAC companies that will offer a reduced price tune-up. So instead of $149, it's only $29.95. That's okay. But if you can do something like an attic inspection for attic insulation or ductwork, that's great because you can actually talk about the price of insulation. We've had great success with solar attic fans and insulation, especially in the South. So picture this, someone's listening and they're like, yeah, this all makes sense. My attic is hot, my electric bills are high, and these guys on the radio are saying they'll add 6 inches of attic insulation per square foot for only $1. It's ordinarily $1.25, but today on the radio only, it's $1. If they know their attic is 1,000 square feet, they know it's only going to be $1,000, so they can qualify themselves as a homeowner. No more wasted calls where someone says, oh, it's $1,000 to put that in my attic or $5,000. And so the homeowners in charge, they have qualified themselves. So when they call, they know what it costs, but they're really calling for that free attic inspection. It is the HVAC guy, the attic insulation guy, the electrician's, the plumber's job to make sure they send out a very good sales technician, not just a tech, someone who can close the deal. We'll get them into the house, but they need to then say, hey, we're in your attic. Not only do you need 6 inches, you were right, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, after listening to the show, we need to take out all of the insulation that's there because there are rat feces and it's old and so forth. And so we're going to put down 12 new inches, and we're going to spray Attic Fresh, which is a special product that will help keep the attic smelling fresh, and it will deodorize it, kind of like a Febreze for the attic. On top of that, your ventilation isn't very good. You can get a solar attic fan, which we did talk about on the radio. It's ordinarily $1,200, but the radio special is $1,000, and the government's giving you a 30% federal energy tax credit on it. So it's really only about $700. And so when you do all this, once again, you're the expert, number one. Number two, you bring the product and or service and then a discount. You always throw something in for free, so we'll continue with the attic. The attic company will also throw in a free attic stairway insulator. It's one of those zipper foil deals when you go into the attic, whether you have a ladder or you just have a hatch. And they'll put one of those in for free. It's ordinarily $300. So you, the homeowner today, will get another $300 off. But only 10 of these are available. You must call now. Here is the phone number. So Danny, as we go through the show, we say there's only 5 left. There's only 4 left. And at the end of the show, there's none left. But keep the phone number in case you need some help with your attic, with your water softener, with your HVAC system, and so forth. And we repeat that every week, and we change up the show periodically. But the show can run over and over again. I'm sure, Danny, you have seen or heard infomercials more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the formula. It's pretty simple, and you repeat it over and over and over again within the 30-minute or the 1-hour show. We've done it for all home service categories. I've even done it with things outside of home service just to try it. I've sold pillows and hearing aids and other things. But to keep in mind also, demographic 50 plus, and be on the right station for 50 plus, which, by the way, is conservative talk radio for the most part.
Yeah, I want to jump into the demographic. I'm mostly in digital marketing. I've been in digital marketing really my whole entrepreneurial career. So this is definitely this is outside of my zone. But it's interesting to know that you're actually, even though there's a lot less people listening to the radio than maybe something like Facebook, they are super qualified. They are the exact prospects that you want. Can you talk more about the demographic and who's listening to radio now?
Yeah, you are so tuned in, no pun intended, to how this works. This is such a perfect model. And when people get it, they continue to invest in it and generally take money from other places and put it into this, because you can almost not lose with this because you get free branding. So the people who listen to radio today, who are loyal listeners, and I'm going to separate listeners. You've got music listeners, predominantly FM, all ages, anywhere from a child all the way up to, I don't know, people who are 70 years old. They listen to generally their decade. Someone my age loves the 80s music. You can find that. Someone who's older than me might like the 50s and 60s music. And, younger people like contemporary hit radio, whatever's going on today. The problem with music radio, predominantly on FM, is you can get that anywhere online, right? You can get it on Spotify. You can get it on YouTube if you want to listen to something on YouTube. You don't have to watch it. You can listen. You can get it anywhere. A lot of it's free and some of it's paid online. So that's a problem for music on the radio. That's where we see most of the decline. Here's where you want to be. You want to be where the 50 plus active people are. And what I mean by that is when people listen to conservative talk radio, the 50 plus audience, they're interested in what's going on in their political community. So it's mostly Republican, more to the right, conservative listeners. They're so loyal to the radio station, Danny. Day one, when we put this on the air, if they've never heard us before in Cleveland, Ohio, or Las Vegas, the phone will start ringing, because they're not sold so much on us as they already believe in the station. So think about this. If you were going to buy a hammer and a box of nails and you went to Home Depot, you feel pretty good about those nails and hammer, right? Because they're at Home Depot. So if we're on the air on their favorite radio station that they've been listening to for 15 years, we're in the club. Very loyal. Also financially set. So I say 50 plus. There's a lot in their early 60s, early 70s as well. Some of these are empty nested retired people. This is the beautiful model part of it. It's like a perfect storm. These people are home. That's great if you're a home service provider, because you want to be able to meet with the decision makers, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Smith are sitting in their lazy boys watching Jeopardy. And they need their air conditioning system to run well. You know why? Because they don't work anymore. They're inside their house all day and night. And guess what? They get a pension, or they get Social Security, or they've got $3.2 million in their 401k. Their house is paid for. They don't have kids anymore. They're not traveling much anymore. They're putting money into their comfort. And that's their home. It might only be a 1,500 square foot home. And it's interesting, a lot of contractors say, well, we like 4,000 square foot and up. We like people making 250,000 and up. That's a big mistake. I'm telling you, it's a big mistake to just go after that, because those people who live in those homes are in midlife, and it's crazy. They're not available to meet with you. They're too busy working, and they're up to their eyeballs in debt. I'm generalizing. So it's a great demographic, and this thing always works. This thing works so well, Danny, that I guarantee if one of my clients does not get a phone call in any given week, they don't have to pay me.
Wow. That is crazy. Yeah, no, I love the service. And yeah, let's walk through like what that 30 to 60 minute kind of promotional video, but it's kind of secret. You're kind of sugarcoating it a little bit. What does that 30 to 60 minute segment look like?
So it appears to be a home improvement radio show. So we call it the Check a Pro radio show. I started Check a Pro back in 2005, and when I originally started this, Danny, it was just like an Angie's List for where I lived in the greater Houston area. We've now expanded it nationwide. So Check a Pro has a heritage of 20 years. 2005 is when we started it. And I call myself Check a Pro Joe on the radio because Joe rhymes with Check a Pro and radio. So my name is Jim Klauck, but I'm known as Check a Pro Joe. When people hear the program open up, they hear me, and I'll give them an indication, and they can probably tell by my voice and what I say that I'm in their peer group. Once again, on these radio stations, you're not going to have a 22-year-old apartment dweller female listening. 60% male, 40% female, very loyal. And so they're already comfortable with me. I've been doing radio since 1984. I was a kid. I was 18. So I started in college. And I say that because it's important not to just get on the radio yourself because you don't necessarily know what you're doing. I've been doing this a very long time. I watch people's podcasts. I listen to people's podcasts, and I go, oh, my goodness, anyone can do these things now, and they don't have the training. Some are good. Some are pretty good, and most are pretty bad, but at least they're out there doing stuff on digital. But they wouldn't be able to get on the radio. The radio station would be like, no good. Oh, and one more thing before I continue. One great thing about the radio, too, is that it's not fake. It's real. The problem with digital today, especially with AI, is people do not know for sure if it's real. So let me ask you a question, Danny. If you saw President Trump at the podium in the White House say, we are being attacked by the Russians, take cover, and you saw it online, let's say it's on Instagram, Facebook, it's just immediate. What would you do first?
I'd probably ask my friends. I would double check. I would search it up to verify it because you like you said, not everything's 100% real now.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I would do. I'd turn on the radio and the TV. The Federal Communication Commission will not permit radio, television to lie.
Wow. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. You can't say bad words. I don't know if you ever noticed. You never hear the F-bomb. If you do, you'll get fined by the government. Something else also about radio and television, one reason why it's not going to go away is the government has always used it as a way to communicate with its people. Sometimes we scratch our heads and say, why is the post office still in business? There's UPS and there's FedEx and these other couriers and so forth. And there's, of course, digital ways. Because the government doesn't want it to go away. And they don't want radio to go away. And they don't want TV to go away. And it's not. There's the emergency broadcast system. You would think with the advent of the smartphone, we all can get our Amber Alerts, which we do on our phone. But I'm telling you, if we were being invaded by the Russians, the radio stations and TV stations would immediately stop all programming and start telling the people what's happening. So I would immediately turn on what I call the real news. Now, you're from a different generation. My children are in their early 20s. They didn't grow up with the traditional media. The people 50 plus, they don't trust it as much as you guys do because it's new for us. The first time I was ever on the internet, I was in my 20s. There was no internet when I was a kid. Not that we had access to, the government had access to it. We didn't. I mean, it wasn't until the early 90s that we could even dial up with a modem that screeched like heck because you'd do it over the phone line. It's all foreign to you guys. So once again, people really trust the radio. If you're on the radio, you are important. You are good enough. They believe, and it's true, anyone can have a radio show online. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah. No, like I have a podcast. It's basically free. I'm using Riverside. It's like $30 a month. I can post it on YouTube. That's free. I can post it on Spotify and all these other platforms for free. So it's very low barrier to entry.
Yeah. And no one vets you. No one says, well, Danny, we're not so sure. The radio station would say, what are your credentials? Do you have a resume? Have you done this before? And so when we want to get on a radio station, I just tell them I've been doing this since 1984. But what's really fun about talking with radio stations, which are antiquated, I will tell you this. The average age of most employees at an independent radio station, which means they're not part of a big group like iHeart, There's these small radio stations. There's thousands of radio stations at the country, and many are locally owned and operated. Many of these people are in their 60s and 70s still working there. They need to start backfilling people who are at least 40 or 50, which sounds kind of funny. But in any case, I talk their lingo. You would have a heck of a time communicating with these people because they're not from your generation and they have never moved into digital. Some of these radio stations don't have a digital offering. Many do. Odyssey, which is a big network group, iHeartRadio. Some of these big ones have a big digital piece too. A lot of these little ones don't, and they're more than happy to take our programming because that means more revenue for them, and they don't have talent at their radio station to do what I do on the creative side. So I create everything. I bring it to the radio station. I talk their lingo. I place it for the HVAC client, for instance, and it goes on the air because the HVAC guy doesn't know radio. You don't know radio. I really don't have competition from people in their 20s, 30s, and even 40s because they're digital, which is fine. The digital space is great. It's very crowded, but it doesn't have the same type of loyalty. So getting back to what you can expect when you listen to the program, sounds like a radio show. It's what you call infotainment, information and entertainment. So we're always entertaining and we're dropping tips and facts and golden nuggets. If it's about garage doors, we talk about, hey, at least annually you should have it looked at. You should have it checked up, a tune-up. If you don't want to do that from the outside, on the inside, you can buy some lubricant yourself. Make sure it's not WD-40 because that's not recommended. It should be a special garage door product. And you should spray your springs and your hinges and so forth. So we'll give them tips, but ultimately, these aren't do-it-yourselfers. But we offer it up because that's the way you do things, right? It's like giving away something for free, and then you get the client. And they just gravitate. Think about this. And I know it's hard because you're so young. I'm getting closer to the age that's a little easier. But, let's say you were 70 years old and you never really worked with your hands anyway. You were an accountant. You're recently retired. You're sitting at home and you have 2 garage doors. And you haven't had them maintained recently, but you've had someone come out before, but you don't know who that was and you're not loyal to them. So you hear this guy on the radio. Maybe it's Cody Johnson from Garage Door Doctor in Houston, and he's on the show on a regular basis, and he sounds like a nice guy, family-owned business. He grew up in his father's business, so we talk about the history of the guest, how long you've been in the business, what do you do in the community, and they're like, I feel like I know this guy Cody. I'm going to call him. I'm 70 years old. He's got a special deal, and he's going to take care of me because the host of the show, Jim Klauck, that Check a Pro Joe guy, who I don't really know, but he sounds like someone I really like because that's my job. I'm going to call him and boom, that's how it works. Versus waiting for someone to have a problem. So we literally create demand. So think about this. Someone's listening, they're 70 years old, they're driving home from church, and they hear this infomercial, the Check a Pro radio show. They weren't thinking about their garage door. But now they're thinking, oh my goodness, if I don't get it checked, maybe my spring will break. I better call this guy Cody from Garage Door Doctor. So we create demand versus waiting for that 70-year-old man to hear a bang in his garage, which is a broken spring, and then he goes to Google. He tries to find the yellow pages, but they're not there anymore. So he goes to Google, and he starts searching, and guess what? He may not find Cody first. Maybe he finds his competition. So we actually create demand. There's free branding, so we talk about Garage Door Doctor, A1 Garage Doors, Abacus, whomever it is over and over again. So even if that 70-year-old consumer forgot about Cody and me, 3 months later he is on Google because his spring broke and he sees Garage Door Doctor. He goes, oh yeah, I remember that from somewhere. He may not even remember the show, but it was seared in his brain, and then Garage Door Doctor still gets the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's so funny because I actually just had Dan Antonelli on my podcast yesterday, and he's super big into branding. He did the branding for A1 Garage for Tommy Mello, and he totally crushed it. Tommy's gone from like 30 million to 300 million, and Dan really opened me up to that as well, that the branding is so important. Is that, I'm super involved in the pest control industry, like I told you before the show, and that a lot of people, they're probably not going to call a pest control company if they don't see pests in their house, so there's no immediate problem. But you start to see some ants crawling around, you start to see some spiders, maybe you see a raccoon, some skunks. Now you're calling the pest control company, and now you're Googling them. And that's what helps your SEO, that maybe you're not even necessarily ranking better. Maybe you're just, on the first page of Google. Maybe you're just there. You're not even first. But sure, because people see your company, they're like, oh, wait, I saw you from a few years ago. And that could be from radio. That could be from anything. And like you said, radio is such a trusted source that they're probably going to prefer that over something else. Like, oh, I just saw a random Facebook ad of them. I'm like, no, I heard these guys in the radio. They seem legit.
No, absolutely. And something else we do too, you just brought something to my mind. Not only do we put this on the radio, old-fashioned broadcast, you can hear it on any radio, anywhere in the listening area. We also put it into a podcast online, and we create a specific podcast for that HVAC client, plumber, electrician, roofer. And then we blast it out to Audible and Spotify and Amazon, and we put backlinks from those big guys back to the homepage of the HVAC guy. So if someone is looking for air conditioning repair and they type it in, the podcast site might come up. It's actually like a duplicate site of their website, but it's a totally different domain. It has the phone number, it has all the information their main site has. But guess what? It has full-length radio show that someone could listen to. Even if they don't listen to it, it says, listen to us on the radio. Great credibility. We also have a podcast player that's embeddable. You can put on anyone's website on any page. So you can put it on your own, website on, as an HVAC company on your homepage, and people can play all of these over and over again, and it gives credibility and education, and they're more likely to hire you if they can hear you, or even better yet, see you, which I talk about in this a little bit, not just podcasting, but also the video part of a podcast, which is very popular today, like what we're doing right now. It's not just audio. So I recommend that everybody, if you can't afford to do radio, do podcasts, whether it's audio or video. But be careful. Listen to me carefully. If you are talking to the homeowner, I would not recommend hosting your own. If you're a pest control operator, if you're an HVAC guy, if you're a plumber, that's what you are to the homeowner. You are not the host of a show. Have someone who stands over here, me or someone else, could be anyone. It could be someone who works at your company in HVAC, but he or she needs to position themselves as the host of a show and put you up on a pedestal. Because it's very hard to go around saying, hey, I'm great, I'm an HVAC guy, and I have a podcast, and you should hire me. It's a little less credible than saying, I have this guy on my show, he's an HVAC guy, and he must be good enough to be on this guy's show. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's definitely more powerful when other people are saying good things about you versus you saying good things about yourself. So if you're just doing a solo show and just, hey guys, every single day, hey guys, I'm so good. Hey, choose our HVAC company. But it's much more powerful when it's, like you said, a technician or potentially even a customer. That'd be super powerful if you could have some kind of customer just talk back and forth for a few minutes of just like, wow, I couldn't believe how you did this with my attic, or, what's the secret behind, keeping the pests away forever. So I really like that model as well. And something I want to make sure to ask you is that you're really big on productizing the service. So obviously we're in home services. It's a little bit different than something like an info product that you'd see on a commercial where, I don't know, $100, but, $19, buy now, whatever. How can you productize something like a home service?
Are you referring to the high price point of a new HVAC system, or are you talking about, not talking about the service part, but the actual hardware part? What is the question?
So when you're pitching something on the show, like, we've got 10 left, 8 left, 5 left, what are you pitching?
We are pitching either the service, for instance, instead of $149 today for the tune-up on your HVAC, it's only $39.95 or $29.95. We're pitching that discount. Of course, we're, pitching how long they've been in business and, how many 5-star reviews they have and so forth. if it's a product, we're pitching usually a free water test if it's a water softener, or a free attic inspection. And then if they need something, they know what the water softener costs. They know what the attic insulation costs. And so it really depends on what it is. It's a lot easier to pitch a product. If you ever watch Shark Tank, it's almost always a product. It could be cookies, it could be a Ring doorbell, it could be a new hula hoop, but it's almost never a service, like plain service. You know, you don't get someone saying, hey, we have a new cell phone service, so we compete against Verizon. It's usually not software. Sometimes there's apps and so forth, but generally it's a product. So it's easier because people can get their mind around it. It's also finite. Attic insulation, a solar attic fan, a water softener, a reverse osmosis system for your kitchen sink, one size generally fits all. But if you're a roofer, you can't say the roof's going to cost $18,000. You don't know. You gotta go out there and quote. But you can go out and do a free roof inspection. So it really depends. But we can do it for any home service. When I'm contacted by an HVAC company, and this happens all the time. I get a lot of HVAC companies contacting me saying, hey, I heard about what you do on radio. Can we do this? I ask them if they also do plumbing. And if they say yes, I ask them, do they do water softeners? And they say, yeah. Most of them say, we don't do a lot in water softeners. I'd say, how'd you like to do a lot more? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, the best way to get into the house is through a free water test and a discounted water softener. But once you get them as a client, a new customer, homeowner customer, you can sell them HVAC later. What you really want to do is you want to get in the door, make friends with them, and then be able to pitch. So maybe when you're in there doing the water test, you say, hey, by the way, I can send out another technician at your convenience to give you a free HVAC checkup. Because you're already in the house, right? No like and trust. And they're like, oh, really? Or a discounted one. Here's a coupon for a $39.95 AC tune-up. I see you've got 2 units. Just tell Gloria when you called that, Bubba says to get both done for that price. That type of stuff. If you're a good salesperson, it's going to work out well. And so now you got an HVAC and a plumbing customer all in one just by doing it that way. So I don't sell advertising time. I'm selling a total solution, a system. I've been working with contractors for 20 years, and I've been on radio for 40 years, which makes 60, but that doesn't add up because I'm not 60. So anyway, 40 on radio and then 20 with home service. And then on top of that, I am that avatar customer. I'm 58 years old, and I can identify, and they can identify with me. So it's really this perfect formula.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's incredible. And I misunderstood by the podcast that I was listening to. It sounded like you were productizing, but okay, the thing that you want to be optimizing for usually is just getting in the door. So it's going to be some kind of free service. It might be probably an inspection of some sort. So free pest control inspection, free HVAC inspection. Like, hey, we're just going to come out and check how your thing is, just so you can actually get into the door. And that's what you were saying, is that you need not just technicians, but sales technicians, that once they're in the door, that then they can sell once they're there.
Yeah, my first 2 questions when I'm contacted, and I generally don't reach out. I have a lot of companies reaching out to me. And so when they contact me, the first 2 questions I have, and this is going to sound silly. The first one is, do you answer your phones? Now that sounds like an obvious one. Danny, you'd be surprised how many people don't. We use a tracking system, phone tracking system. I know if they don't answer their phone because it hits our number first, and then we transfer it to the contractor. So we can hear everything, because every week we send analytics, which are very simple, because it's not digital analytics. It's who called and what they said and so forth, because we have all that data because it comes through our system first. Many don't answer their phone. That's a problem. So that's the first thing. The second thing, now just escaped me. What were we just talking about? Can you help me out here? What was the second thing that we were just talking about? There were 2 things I wanted to talk about as far as what the contractor has to do. Oh, they have to have killer salespeople. Okay. So I asked them, Are your sales people killers? Are they just waiting to take an order? Or are they going to make this happen? I will get you in the house. The homeowner understands the offer. They know, like, and trust you. Now it's up to you. But I'm not going out to the house with you. That's your job. So you better have great salespeople.
Awesome. And another thing I wanted to ask, I know that in the podcast that I've listened from you is that you're usually working with bigger companies. It probably doesn't make sense to do radio if you're a smaller company, maybe even under $1 million a year. But then when does it, you're starting to grow, maybe you're a few $1 million a year, you're looking to invest in other kinds of marketing strategies and lead generation. When does it make sense to get into radio?
When you're at least $5 million.
Mm.
Or you're in a high ticket, high margin, maybe a little sooner, and especially if you're in a smaller market. So it depends. I will tell you this, though. That's the third question I ask. How much annual volume do you do? And if they say 50 million, I don't care where they are. They're great. They're set. They're already doing radio. If you're doing 50 million or more, you're doing radio spots, 30 and 60 seconds. And they understand radio. An HVAC company doing 5 million, probably great. An HVAC company doing 3 million, maybe. A pressure wash company doing 850,000 a year, never, ever. Nope, not going to work. I suggest that they do, more of a podcast thing that we offer as well, or they can hire someone else to do that as well. Like I say, always have someone else interview you. That's my recommendation. Always, always, if you can. So it really depends. I generally, if I were going to reach out, I would reach out to companies in home service that are doing 20 million or more. If I'm going to reach out, I get a lot of incoming, right? So a lot come in, and then I try to work with them. But sometimes I say, you're just not, you're not big enough. I will say this, and I think this will be helpful, because people ask, how much does it cost? The average hour of radio with my fees and the radio station is going to be between $750 and $1,000 a week. So budget $4,000 a month, roughly, for an hour every week. It's a 13-week commitment with the radio station, and I have a 13-week as well. Most radio stations are 3 months or 13 weeks to do a campaign. And I wouldn't do it for less, because you got to do it. You either do it or you don't. You don't join a gym for a day. You do it or not. And so if someone's listening and they're like, okay, that's not a lot of money. We're spending all kinds of money on marketing and advertising. Then I would try it out for at least 13 weeks. If you're in a smaller market, it's going to be a little less. And if you're in a larger market on a larger station, it could be more. I've had clients spend over $3,000 an hour, but they got 40 appointments every hour. 40 appointments, not leads. Remember, a lead is when someone generally finds you. Well, I'm in the market of having my kitchen remodeled, and you're the third contractor I've called. Versus someone saying, I heard you on the radio. I wasn't even in the market for this. I want you to come out because I've been listening for 40 minutes. And this is something I want. So you're creating demand, and they don't know where else to go because no one else is offering it. You know what I mean? So when you drive up as the plumber or the HVAC guy, you're not going to be bumping into competition. It's like a referral. It actually is a referral. So if you're referred by someone, so if a neighbor refers you to another neighbor, Mrs. Smith refers you to Mr. Brown, you're probably not going to run into another contractor because you're calling that contractor that Mrs. Smith offered up. It's that simple. So you don't have competition. You don't have to worry about pricing as much. And they're going to welcome you into the home versus door knocking, versus even they finding you on Google and calling you, because they're probably calling your competition as well. Unless it's an emergency and there's water flying all over their house, they may take the first plumber that responds.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing, is that everyone's now doubling down on digital. So radio seems like it's kind of wide open, and you can establish that really trustworthy customer base. And something I kind of just wanted to lock down and make sure I've got right. So the main strategy is 30 to 60 minute kind of interviews, kind of infotainment. Do you ever do the 30 to 60 seconds, or is it usually always the longer ones?
I get paid to make the phone ring. I cannot make your phone ring the way I'd like to in 30 or 60. You can have anyone spend money on that for you. It doesn't make any sense to me to do that. It would almost be like if someone came to you and said, hey, I want to do a 30-second podcast without video. 30 seconds. Well, you're like, well, I mean, they'll be able to hear you for a while, versus 30 seconds with video. Better. How about a 30-minute podcast with video? Way better.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hire an ad agency to place your 30 or 60-second spot. You can hire someone on Fiverr to read the commercial. You can read it yourself. You can have the agency do it or the radio station. And it's just going to be another crappy campaign. And it's going to be one more person who tells me radio didn't work.
I'm sure you've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
So something else that I'd like to dive into. So I know you've kind of got these two fields now. It's radio and podcasting, which are kind of the same thing, but they've got some differences. Let's talk about how businesses can potentially implement podcasting themselves. Again, we talked about it a little bit before the show, but I'd like some actionable steps of like how they can start a podcast today for their business, and what would that do?
I like the way, Danny, you said for their business. You're very familiar with the podcast space, as I am. In-home service, you'll get all kinds of people, plumbers, HVAC, roofers, electricians, doing a podcast that isn't necessarily for the end user, the consumer. It's shop talk, right? It's a I don't even know if it's B2B business. It's tradesmen talking amongst themselves on how great they are, and it's true. I mean, I can point you to a bunch of them. Oh man, we doubled our income this year, and we're going to teach you how to upsell. Which, by the way, the homeowner doesn't want to hear that. So be careful. Be careful what you put out there, because it's an open domain. Okay, so be very careful what you're saying out there, because the consumer may find you. It's possible they will if they type in your company name. Versus a podcast where you can find someone who has credibility or appears to, who is not in a position of being subjective, kind of like you are now. You're interviewing me from an objective point of view. And you're interviewing an expert in radio, direct response radio, long form. That's me. I don't claim to be an expert anywhere else. That's what you want. So if you're an electrician, you want someone like a Danny to interview you, or even someone like me, because when the homeowner hears and sees it, it's an objective point of view for what the end user's looking for. Why should I hire that electrician? Because the electrician's been doing it for 30 years. They have 1,000 5-star reviews. They do this in the local community. They love on their team members. They give dog biscuits to their customers' dogs, whatever it is. And there's a huge mistake being made now, shop talk, if you will. Like I said, a couple of contractors talking about how they can help other contractors improve margins. Homeowner don't want to hear it. They don't. So there you go.
You have to appeal to your customer base. Yeah, no, I see that a lot in pest control. There's a lot of pest control guys that just have tiny pest control podcasts, and all they talk about is just like, oh yeah, well, I hired a new tech this week, and oh, okay, well, this kind of bug, whatever, but that they're not appealing to their customers at all.
Exactly.
Like what I'm trying to do with this show, I mean, I mainly serve pest control companies, but I might refer some other business of people that are working with HVAC companies or something similar, or I might eventually expand out to that. But overall, I'm trying to be helpful to my customer base of, hey, you want to learn of how to potentially do radio? Listen to Jim. Hey, you want to learn how to do branding? Listen to Dan. So having all the top people in the industry and genuinely being helpful and having that objective view, like you said. So the last question I've got for you, Jim, is what does the future of radio look like? I know it's a little bit uncertain. You've been in it for 40 years, so I feel like you'd probably have a better look and a better take than most people. Where do you see radio going in the next, 10 years or so?
It's a much more stable and safer place than digital. I'll start off with that. Radio has been around for 105 years. It is the only medium today that has not changed. Even televisions from the early 2000s won't work today because the FCC switched things over to digital TV. So if you have a television from 1998, you can turn it on. It's a tube television, the old CRT tubes. It might take a little while to warm up as well, but you won't be able to receive a broadcast channel on it because they're all digital now. In my studio, on the other side of my screen and my camera, I have an RCA radio from 1930. It has old vacuum tubes in it. That means it's old. So when you turn it on, it hums. It takes a while to get warmed up. Literally, you got to warm this thing up. It's in a wooden cabinet with an original cloth speaker cover. The thing looks like what you would expect. If you go to ChatGPT and type in, build me an image of a 1930 radio, the old-fashioned radio, right? And I could turn this on right now. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I can listen to local radio right now. It's the same transmitter. It is the same receiver. It hasn't changed. If you have a 1957 Chevy with an AM radio in it, you can listen to radio. It's unfreaking believable. Radio's a cockroach. As I said earlier, it has dropped. It's hit kind of a bottom for radio. Here's the problem with digital, and I don't mean to beat up on it, and I'm in the digital space too, okay? The government isn't fond of digital. TikTok may go away. It did for a while. Hours. Came back. It's unknown. People were crying online, if I lose my TikTok channel, I'll not get $100 this year. Whatever. Yeah. Okay? It wasn't long ago that I was on Facebook doing some business work for some of my clients because we can actually put these online products and radio podcasts up on their Facebook pages. And Zuckerberg's people put up on my screen saying, your account's been suspended. And it wasn't fake. It was suspended. And we had to jump through some hoops because the bots out there, the AI, whatever, their software thought we were messing around. Okay, so it's almost too smart for everyone's own good. So we had to jump through some hoops to get unlocked. What a pain in the butt. Radio does not get unlocked or locked to begin with. It's just old-fashioned stuff. I live on a ranch. I have a tractor. It's diesel. It's new. It's literally got only a few hours on it. If something happens to any of the electronics, it won't run. If you have a diesel tractor from 1980, it runs forever because it's simple. It's so complicated and digital. It can be shut down. It literally can. You can be blocked. You can be taken away. How many people have had Google screw with their business? Many.
So many.
Yes. That doesn't happen with the old mediums. It just doesn't. And so to answer your question, it's a very, very safe space. I've actually made a business decision to double down on radio. So I was thinking years ago that I need to get out of radio because it's going to, go off a cliff, and I need to get into the digital space, which is why I got into digital. But over recent months, like, 9, 10, 12 months, I've been thinking, wait a second. Radio isn't going anywhere fast. It doesn't change like digital. Digital's moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. Every day there's something new algorithm, something comes, something goes. You need a new password for this. Something's been shut down because of that. All of a sudden, why aren't we showing up at the top of Google? Why am I spending so much money on these SEO companies? Whatever. Radio, it's the same old. It's boring. It's simple. But boring and simple is good, like the tractor. Just turn the key, the darn thing starts instead of saying, uh-oh, what happened? Oh, I have to take it back to the dealership because they kind of shut it off because they want me to come in for a tune-up. But, so I don't know if that answers your question. In short, radio and television are stable as heck. Do they have the same viewership and listenership? No, but it doesn't matter because the prices have come down in relation. Also, if you got 10 phone calls from an hour 10 years ago of radio, You're only getting 5 now. Well, the price is half, so just buy 2 hours and you're still there.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. I'm not just doubling down on radio and hedging my bets with radio because I am an older generation. I'm doing it because it's a smart business decision for me and my clients. I have a lot of clients that do it, and I mean, like Garage Door Doctor's been on for 3 years straight, every weekend. So 3 times 52. It's a lot of radio shows, and it's the same message, but it doesn't matter. Boom, 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 boom. And it's predictable. About $1,000 a month for an hour every week. And you're going to get appointments, not just phone calls, not leads. These are people who are going to invite you into your house because they know, like, and trust you.
So boring and simple works. Radio's not going anywhere. It's not dead like everyone's saying. And it also puts you in front of all of your top qualified prospects. Awesome. Well, I think this was a great show, Jim. I super appreciate you. I super appreciate you coming on the show. I think it's been great, and I've learned a ton. Again, I'm a digital guy. I've been in digital marketing my whole career. So it's really cool to learn on the other side of marketing. So to wrap up here, where can people find you on social media, learn more about you, and contact you?
So you can go to the web and type in the Radio Pitchman, and you can find me there at theradiopitchman.com. I spend most of my time on social media on Facebook. It just seems to be the best place to find me, and it's Jim Klauck, Klauck. You can find me there. You can find me at CheckaPro, just like it sounds, checkapro.com. And it's pretty easy to find. My name is so unique. When you type in Jim Klauck, there's really no one else but me. So it's easy to find me. You can always email me directly, jim@theradiopitchman.com. jim@theradiopitchman.com. Oh, and by the way, if you want a free copy of my book, send me an email and I'll send this to you in the mail. Once again, old-fashioned stuff still works. Right? I'll send it to you in the mail. Or if you go to theradiopitchman.com, you can actually listen to the audio version. It's about a 27-minute book online, free. No, you can listen to it.
Awesome. So everyone should go check that out. I'm going to leave all those links in the description. And thanks again for coming on, Jim. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it, buddy.
Mm-hmm.